So Liam Neeson launches his action movie star career in a film from the producer of The Transporter, as he bores through the European criminal underworld in the international box office sensation, Taken. Retired Green Beret and ex-CIA officer Brian Mills attempts to rebuild his relationship with his estranged daughter Kim on her 17th birthday, even with his remarried ex-wife Lenore standing in opposition to him. That night, Brian's service buddies drop by for a cookout and offer him a security gig, escorting pop star Shira to and from her concert in Los Angeles, to which he accepts. Yet when a crazed fan attempts to assault her after the show, Brian defends her and neutralizes the assailant, as well as consoles the shaken star. The next day, Kim and Lenore meet Brian for lunch that gives written consent to allow Kim to visit Paris with her friend Amanda for the summer. He's hesitant at first, upsetting Kim in the process, but after parting from Lenore, he eventually gives in, but with conditions that Kim be calm upon landing, and every night to assure him of her safety. When Kim and Amanda arrive in Paris, they are met by Peter who offers to split the cost of a cab ride. Amanda is infatuated by the handsome young man, and takes him up on his invite to a party that night. However, it all proves to be a setup, as while Kim checks in with her dad, several men break in and abduct Amanda. Brian instructs Kim to hide under the bed, but knows that she will soon be taken. When one of the abductors grabs the phone, Brian informs him that if they don't let his daughter go, he will find them, and he will kill them. The only response is,
"Good luck."
Brian then enlists his friend Sam to analyze the recording and track down who he's up against. The news is then broken to Lenore that these men are part of an Albanian sex trafficking ring, led by a man named Marco, and Brian has only 96 hours to find Kimmy, before she may never be found. Thus Brian heads to Paris, identifying Peter from Kim's camera, but before Brian can get anything out of him, Peter leaps off an overpass and is plowed over by a truck, killing him. The former spy then connects with old ally Jean-Claude, now Deputy Director of the Ministry of the Interior, who leads him to an encounter with an Albanian pimp, whom Brian tags with a bug. A hired translator includes Brian in on a construction site where a makeshift brothel exists. Although only finding Kim's denim jacket, Brian takes one of the girls with him, after fighting his way through a barrage of explosions and gunfire, destroying a trailer in his escape. After nursing the girl back to health, she tells Brian of a building with a red door. There he meets with the Albanians posing as a crooked government official, negotiating a higher rate for bribes. They all eventually acquiesce, including Marco, who unknowingly outs himself as the man Brian threatened on the phone. Mills then fights them off with violent precision, only to find Amanda dead in the house. He then drags Marco to an electro-interrogation setup, where he pries the name Patrice Sinclair out of him, but even still, he leaves Marco to be electrocuted to death. Now Brian Mills must face head-on the corruption and culpability of his old friend Jean-Claude, and a salacious underground auction house, where he finds his daughter drugged and put up for bidding. From here, he must force and fight his way through an array of dangerous men, on a direct path to saving his daughter and bringing her back home. So Taken saw its initial theatrical release in France on February 27, 2008, which ends up being the home country producer Luc Besson, very much well known as the director of La Femme Nikita, Leon the Professional, and The Fifth Element, later on a producer on films such as the Transporter franchise, Colombiana, Lockout, a lot of different action vehicles. But the entire film had a very wide release strategy, rolled out to a lot of different markets over an 18-month period. Didn't land in North America until January 30th of 2009, where it really became kind of a surprise hit, because even though it was a $25 million budget and kind of internationally after everything was said and done, grossed about $81 million, but North America grossed $145 million for a total of $226.8 million worldwide, almost 10 times its budget returned at the box office, which is a hell of a thing for a film that Liam Neeson thought was going to be a direct-to-video film. Like, he kind of took on this film just to have a different thing to do, kind of more physically challenging role against all the other kind of heavy dramatic stuff he'd done, with a few splashes of action every so often. Like, did stuff like Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze, did Dark Man. Did stuff like Rob Roy, which has a lot of action adventure elements into it, and he does like Star Wars The Phantom Menace and Batman Begins. Some things that just had a little action elements every so often, but was kind of more mainly known, especially with Schindler's List, as a very heavy dramatic actor, but something that just went off so well, going on to a little bit of a different stride for him, going off the entire thing. Where it started as a screenplay from Robert Mike Kamen and Luc Besson. Kamen had been working for decades. He wrote the first 3 films in the Karate Kid franchise. And he wrote The Transporter, and he very much worked with Luc Besson, a lot of different people. Long storied career for this man. And so, developing the entire thing, and started after hearing a story about how one of these international sex crime rings got kind of broken up to a certain degree, and just kind of laid seeds of a different idea here about finding a crux for an interesting story there to have a bit of emotional propulsion to the story to a certain degree, and have it the fact that, well, a man who's retired CA goes off and has to rescue his own daughter from this entire sort of scenario and stuff like that. So, kind of sparked off very nicely, and the fact that Kamen's done so much work, and he's done some very, very good work, that he really knows how to work with this genre so well. I mean, The Transporter is a fantastic action film that I do hope to cover one day, but I have to get the Japanese Blu-ray, which has the uncut version of the film. The one in the US, not the best version of the whole thing. But the fact is, he's kind of gotten to this groove at this point in time, knowing exactly how to satiate that sort of bare bones action movie sort of flair to a certain degree. It's like someone who can really dig into something that was kind of prevalent like the 80s, especially like the early 90s. You had these kind of like stripped down action films. They're like not big visual effects films, but it's like these kind of like raw action movies, sort of thrillers to a certain degree they had with like Van Damme, Seagal, stuff like that. Wesley Snipes was doing some stuff. Stuff that was just like really just kind of like hand-to-hand combat, like gunplay, not like big spectacle to a certain degree, but it was just a very satisfying, down and dirty sort of gritty type of film to a certain degree. And certainly for the US audience, I don't know if it was especially for also some other territories as well, it was kind of cut down to get a little bit of a softer rating for it. So when you went to see this film theatrically, especially in the US, I remember seeing some stuff in the trailer that wasn't there in the theater, especially the stuff with the electrode interrogation scene was not present in the film I saw theatrically. Thankfully, on home video, they gave you the uncut version of the whole thing. And so much getting up to finding a director for the entire film was very much a thing that seemed like Besson was very much kind of working as a guy who promoted from inside. Worked a lot of regular creatives, it seems, because Pierre Morel was the director of photography on The Transporter, and they gave him this job to direct Taken. And so much so that, one, again, Transporter is fantastic, looks fantastic, and seeing a guy who does have a certain talent to work up to the entire thing and give his own spin to this sort of genre, a very smart type of thing. They kind of have a lot of guys you can see that have a certain talent, a certain acumen that could be promoted forward and kind of give them more opportunities. I like that idea. And goes off and delivers a very tight, concise set of the entire thing. I like how lean the film is. Doesn't waste any time. I like how everything is very economical, how you set everything up with the relationship with the father, with the daughter, and the fact there's a broken marriage there and she's remarried, and all these different things. And he's a little bit on the outs, and he's trying to repair the relationship to a certain degree, but then you kind of move over into the entire thing where his old buddy's kind of recruited for the entire security job, and that entire thing shows off what his skills are. Shows that he has a certain particular set of skills that will come into factor later on in the film. So it does everything very economic how it sets it up. That's pretty much a screenplay, beginning director who can get that pace going and make sure everything has an even flow to it. You're not feeling like you're kind of mulling around or anything like that. Everything is very much moving along in a very tight sensibility in that regard. That's very much the director, making sure that everything moves forward on the right levels there, and having good cinematography like Michelle Abramowitz. Not a lot of stuff that I very much know. He did later on another Luc Besson vehicle, From Paris with Love. He would shoot the 2011 prequel to The Thing, which in my review for the entire film, I did give good props to the actual cinematography of the film. We've been working on French films since like the 80s, so he's very much a seasoned cinematographer in that regard. And him and Morel really kind of adapt to the entire kind of Paul Greengrass style that's going on at the time with the action films. Also, there is shaky cam stuff, but not the bad type. They definitely were examining things and knew exactly what they were doing with it, and knew how to create a gritty, realistic style that doesn't chaotically confuse the audience. had a very good sensibility of making sure that implemented very well along with the narrative here. You can have a certain gritty texture to the entire film without losing the context of what you're doing from action beat to action beat. So I like how they do that. And also, there's a few moments where Abramowitz gets some really nice sort of inspired pieces of lighting in the film. Like, they're kind of fleeting in some place, but I like the fact that there's some points where like there's like a shaft of light or something else like that. Just really has a really smart sensibility about making a mood for certain things. Certain sequences, certain little scenes have a certain mood in how he lights them. I like that quality because certainly like the green grass stuff and sort of like Bourne Supremacy and whatnot, it felt like so much like natural lighting that it really wasn't flattering and very much kind of left certain things backlit and kind of dark in some places here. This one feels like a little more like a lit film to a certain degree, and a little more care and attention put into that to make sure everything came out very clearly on that regard. So I like how they kind of use the lighting in some places to really give a little extra something to the film that gave it a little more polish to a certain degree in that regard. But like I said, Morel does a really good job here to make sure you understand the drama, the stakes, the emotion in the entire film here. It takes moments in the entire film. Like, it has very propulsive momentum to the entire film, but never forgets to kind of slow it down, take a few reflective moments with Brian Mills, Liam Neeson's character here, to understand where he is at the point in time as the story progresses. He gets further and further along into finding out where his daughter is. It takes a few moments to kind of have the emotions settle back in and have Liam Neeson act a moment that's very quiet but very poignant to the entire story here. So that's a very good director. He's not just interested in just moving the story along, getting to the next act speed or something else like that. He understands what the story is and wants to focus in on how the story is affecting the character involved at the head of the entire film here. So very good stuff. Like, Morel does a really solid job making this film feel fresh at the time and also very exciting and very connect to a certain degree, but not chaos. He knows his craft very well. And it's very much a good thing to see in this sort of era we had here where they're kind of doing a lot of people emulating that Paul Greengrass style, and a lot of directors out there just botching it up like crazy and just making just horrible films that give you a headache. They're chaotic. You can't follow the action at all. It's all just like slopped together and cut so badly and whatnot. This director who knows what he's doing with this entire thing. He's got a good set of people here. Along with the editor, Frederick Thorthall, particularly, apparently Scott Derrickson likes this guy because he edited both Sinister and The Black Phone for him. So delved in some horror here, and he's done a very good job in that regard. In fact, like, just these people involved, the cinematographer, the editor, director, they know exactly what they're doing with this style and know how to be reserved at certain points of time, but know how to make very clear decisions in the visuals of the entire film that tell the story very, very well without sacrificing anything that would keep the audience very much engaged with what they're doing. And talking about Liam Neeson here, who was about 55 years old when they were shooting this film, which for context, that's about as old as Keanu Reeves was when he was shooting John Wick Chapter 3, and Tom Cruise was shooting Mission Impossible Fallout. So you can see that, like, these older action stars can really hang in there and deliver some of the best work they've done in that field. And so Liam Neeson jumped into the whole thing. Like I said, he wanted to do something a little more physically challenging. He was just kind of like interested in the concept, the script, and whatnot. I didn't think it was going to be a big film or what. I just kind of wanted to delve into something else, which definitely became much more of a second career for him, sort of renaissance to a certain degree, a different avenue to explore for like the next 15 years. And so the fact is he jumped into the entire thing, and he's really goddamn good in the films. Like, so much what Liam Neeson does in this role of Brian Mills really elevates the film. Like, his acting quality so much brings it up to a different level. Because you can see, like, if it had a lesser actor, if it was like an established action star, it wasn't that great of an actor, but good at being action star, it might have felt a little bit more of a cheaper type of film. It wouldn't feel quite as big of a film. It wouldn't feel like quite as resonant film in that regard. But because Neeson has the tools to give you an empathetic performance, a character that has some depth and some layers to it, you can see it in what he projects on the screen with his nuances. When you see him dealing with some different things in the film, going from the warm, caring father that's kind of trying to repair the relationship there where he was kind of absent for a lot of her upbringing, but then when you get into that thing when he's in there with the phone call and he's listening to all the stuff going down overseas with his daughter, and you can see it on his face when he hears her getting abducted, just the emotion, the fear, all that type of stuff. Everything's going on. The panic he has in everything. Oh, just like it just penetrates so well. Just feel the rumbling sensibility where the film is going to launch off to. So much what he does, and that entire phone call has become so iconic. What he does there, it's like that even tempered type of thing. It's like I don't have money, but I do have a very particular set of skills that make me a knight for people like you. If you don't let her go, I will find you and I will kill you. It's a restrained performance, but it gives you everything you need right there to sell where the film is going so much. And he's so perfect the entire thing. And he just launches into things like with such ferocity. And the physicality he has so much. Because Liam Neeson's a big dude, man. And big mitts on his hand and whatnot. The guy is... I don't want to be slapped around by Liam Neeson with those big hands. It'd be really bad. But he's got such a presence on screen so much. You can just see this big guy just kind of throwing himself around and all the time stuff, just muscling these dudes and kicking their asses and whatnot. It's great when he just shows up in Paris and is beating up Peter and all this type of stuff. Just like it just has all this intensity that you're so satiating for. And I like the fact that as the thing goes on, as he's being very clever about what he's doing, try to get here and there, try to use a little bit of the tools he has from the spycraft and kind of use it to kind of pick up some information. Like when he kind of goes up to the hooker on the street and kind of knows that he's going to be baiting the pimp. And he plants a little microphone on him and he uses the translator guide to kind of eke out some information about what these guys are doing. Where to find certain things, where to go, stuff like that. I like it so much. It's like the little smart types of things he has going on. And when he's dealing with Jean-Claude later on in the film, and he has to kind of play this entire game with the entire guy because Jean-Claude wants him out of the country. He's been doing stuff that's kind of rattling too many cages, and he can't have that in the city, and stuff like that. And he's using all these little spycraft type of things, like he's using the walkie-talkie with the remote cell phone or whatnot, so they can't directly track him. All these little things, like they're very much kind of Bourne-esque type of things, but they're still smart in the context of the film. It shows what his skill set is. Not just beating people up and gunplay. He's got all these different things he can use towards his advantage to kind of outwit people here and there. So it's very smart type of things, how he moves the entire thing along. But when he gets ruthless, he gets cutthroat. Like, again, the interrogation scene, when he just buries those freaking spikes in the guy's freaking quads, and the entire thing where he's so calm in the scene. Like, oh, we used to outsource this stuff with third world countries, didn't have good power grids. Here, nice metropolitan area, nice even flow of electricity and whatnot. I can flip a switch, it stays on all day long. It's awesome. It's like, goddamn, it's a scene. Like living hell's like, I was watching this, it's like, man, this is kind of right up there with Le Chiffre and the interrogation scene of Casino Morel a little bit. It's got that same sort of badassery to it. You know, it's flipped over, where that's the bad guy interrogating the good guy. This is the good guy interrogating a really bad dude. And it's just so satisfying. It's like, oh shit, this dude. Even after he gets the information, it's like, this shit ain't gonna save you. He flips it on and just walks out. It's like, oh my god. This film is just so absolutely like old school action movie badass stuff. Like, I heard so many people talking like this, so much like a Charles Bronson type of thing when he was doing like Death Wish sequels and various other things in his later career or whatnot. It's very much on that vibe, so much like this ruthless old guy who can still beat the crap out of everyone else and still deliver it so well. It's like, Neeson is so good the role. He brings forth dimensionality, but also the fierceness you need with the physicality. Selling what this guy is capable of doing in the face of everything else. Of course, when he gets up and starts interrogating Jean-Claude by shooting his wife in the shoulder, oh my god. It's like, and you're still with Mills the entire time, because the Jean-Claude guy, he's definitely complicit in something, even though he doesn't care what it is. If he's just taking the money to kind of shuffle some shit off the grid or whatnot, this guy's complicit. He knew about it the whole time. So maybe the wife doesn't deserve it, but Jean-Claude's going to pay some kind of price in this entire thing. So it's still something that's showing the edge of the character so much. And it's very much that again, that ferocity, that visceral edge of the character here being amplified so much. You know the stakes, and the time is running short. From what he's been told from his friend Sam, you got 96 hours to find her before statistically you may never find her again. So it's coming down the wire. He's hot on this entire thing, and he's got to get the information any way he possibly can, Neeson's just incredible. This is one of the best action film performances he's ever done. Certain other ones I'll talk about later on, but definitely this one was so electric what he did, not to be a put on that entire thing, but you can see why it just exploded his career in a different direction in this entire thing. So he's awesome. Awesome, the entire role here. A few other small roles. You got Famke Janssen playing Lenore, the ex-wife. She always does a good job. She's always so talented. And the fact that you got this entire thing where they're playing the cold, estranged sort of relationship type of thing. Like, they had something back in the day, but because he wasn't ever present, and she had to raise the daughter alone, and she had enough of his stuff, and just broke off and went off with this other guy who's enormously wealthy, portrayed by the fantastic Xander Berkeley. Famke just always delivers 100% of the time. She's so damn good, and I like the fact that once the actual meat of the plot kicks in and finds out her daughter's been abducted, the distraught quality she brings forth is just so absolutely realistic and just great. And when she comes back around the end of the film, and she's so elated that she has her daughter back, and have that sort of patchwork back together with Brian, just so appreciative of what he did, that everything that he kind of spent all those years off not being present paid off because it brought her daughter back from a fate worse than death. And so that's so much a great thing. And Maggie Gries is good too. She does a really good job being wholesome, sweet, endearing. I like so much that she does create that bond so much with Liam Neeson. I have always had this sort of nagging feeling about her, because she's about 24 doing this film. She's playing characters about 17. I always feel like she just feels like a little too old to be playing this sort of plucky teenager or whatnot. It always kind of throws me off at certain points of the film, or maybe it's just how she's wardrobed. It feels like she's being dressed younger than what she is and doesn't quite feel right. It's always a nagging thing. And not a quality against her acting performance, or just something just feels like a few years too old to be playing that young in that sort of context. But there's certain points in time she does display very good qualities with her character, where her friend Amanda's very much a little bit more risk-taking in that regard. She wants to just met this Peter guy, and she wants to already sleep with him and go off these parties and all that type of stuff. She's a lot more debaucherous to a certain degree, where Kimmy's just a little bit more reserved. She's a little bit more just kind of pure in that regard. So that very much aids the entire course of the film. All that type of stuff, whereas getting on the edge of, at the end of the film, it's all going to be just completely just run to ruin in that regard. So much of that entire thing, just the quality of what she brings forward with the character there in that regard, aids towards the emotional propulsion, as I've mentioned before, of what Brian Mills is going through the entire film. So dramatically, she hits the buttons and clicks and connects with everything that needs to go forward to make the film feel as important in that regard. And because you get all these different guys, got Leland Orser playing Sam, who's a fantastic character. He's been in 100,000 things, and he's always really great. And John Gries, he was the guy who turns into the Wolfman in the Monster Squad. It's oh yeah, that's the guy. Cool stuff. And you got David Warshofsky, who's he's really good as well. It's I couldn't really pinpoint where I've seen him before, but I've definitely seen him around. So really good collection of character actors there that kind of bolster sort of Brian Mills' sort of backstory in that regard, and kind of build out his sort of circle of friends, kind of make him a very strong character in that regard. So they all do a really good job in that regard. So everyone does this really well. It's interesting how the film doesn't have a real central villain. You have kind of layers and tiers of villains. You got all the different things, you got Peter first, then you have Marco, and then you have Sinclair, and then you have the Sheik and stuff like that. So there's not really, if you could hold anything against the film possibly, it's you don't have a real central villain to hook the entire crux of the story on, where a lot of the best action films of all time have a central villain that you spend a lot of time with, or at least delivers a very core performance that drives forward the thread of the film. This one's just a menagerie of different really bad people. They're just going to get the shit kicked out of them, or shot up like living crap, or maybe cut up in some place here. There's a nice variety of different things what happened to all these really bad dudes. So still, it's very satisfying. Him going through all these people, and they're all very well cast. They all got the right looks for all the different levels they're at, and all these different things. So it's so well put together in terms of the cast. They got some really strong people in the right places, real strong lead in the entire thing, and the right supporting actors are going to get the entire film very much bolstered in that regard. So I think they did a really good job assembling the cast for Taken. And composer Nathaniel Meshley actually has got a pretty contemporary sounding score here, which is apparently very difficult to find because it's not available on any digital platforms. There's no CD currently available, nothing. The scores for Taken 2 and Taken 3 are readily available, done by the same composer, but this one's not available anywhere. So it's very hard to find, very weird in that regard. But as it complements the film, it does it very well. It's got some very percussive orchestration, along with a tad bit of electronic in there. It sounds a little bit in the vein of the Bourne scores from John Powell, but it doesn't kind of copy anything. It just feels like it's something of the same era, in the same vein, but still has its own flavor and identity for itself. So I like how it goes along and kind of complements the film very strongly when you get up to action sequences, action cues, tense, suspenseful type of things in the entire film. Does it very well. I think it aids the film in a very smart, strong type of way. Now, like I said, with the action film, they did very smart type of things, kind of adapting into that handheld action style, but doing extremely well because they have some generous framing, got good lighting, the editing is very sharp. Everything is very clearly conveyed. You don't have a lot of things where there's obscured angles or bad lighting and whatnot where you can't really tell what's happening. Everything, when there's even quick shots, quick cuts. When you're doing the entire car chase through the construction site there. Got a couple of quick edits here, but you can still see everything very clearly conveyed. You can see what the relation is between each car, what face you're looking at in each shot. All the different things go off very, very well, and you can continue to feel escalation of the scene as it builds up and builds up. The one car smashes into the entire bulldozer or whatnot. All these different things, and it crashes through the trailer. Everything is just very simple and well told. And that's what you have to do in action. You don't have to do fancy stuff, or you can't just shake the camera around where it's all just seizure cam type of stuff, where a lot of other directors, like I said, went off and did that and didn't know what they're doing. Morel knows what he's doing here, and each one of these sequences is a variety of stuff. Like I said, there's some gunfights, there's some hand-to-hand combat stuff, car chase stuff, various other things. I like the fact they keep everything kind of varied throughout the entire film. Don't get the same action beat over and over again, so you get an escalation, a different dynamic every single time, and the environments change here and there, especially when you get to the climax up on the boat. And have to play a little subterfuge back and forth to kind of play with the different angles of the entire room and whatnot, and crashing through windows and stuff like that. All these different things. It's all very smart type of stuff constructed in a way to gradually build upon each successive sequence. Everything gets up on a higher level and moving the story forward and getting closer and closer towards the edge of suspense, getting up to the further edges of threats and whatnot, as he kind of breaks into the entire sort of auction house and he gets caught and he's got to fight his way through that and all the different things. And he's kind of interrogating Patrice Sinclair and all these different things. I like the fact that, again, even though Sinclair, man, he's begging for his fucking life and he gives Mills what he wants, but so much like Marco, it's not going to save you, and he just pumps the bullets right into him over and over again. And I like the fact that they linger on the shot after Mills leaves the thing. You just linger on it for a little bit just to soak it in a little bit. That's really good storytelling. That's really good filmmaking type of stuff. Let the moments kind of linger there and get the audience to absorb what happened there. It's great stuff. Get the impact pulled into the audience so much. It's really good small little things, but it shows exactly what the director knows what he's doing. What to let the audience sink in and when to kind of move forward. How to pace things in that regard. So it's all very well put together stuff. All the action, so much the big thing on the entire film, finding out about this entire thing, the combat specialist, the technical consultant they had for the firearms, the combat type of stuff, was Mick Gould, who's Michael Mann's guy. This guy worked on Heat, Collateral, Miami Vice, Public Enemies, Black Hat. The guy's worked on a lot of different things. And Michael Mann, if he trusts this guy with that type of stuff, he trained Tom Cruise on Collateral. This is the guy. All the type of stuff. If that's the guy who got for that, and you got him for this, you've got the best guy in the field for this type of stuff. And that's why this film feels so good on the action level, because you got someone who can just bring that reality in the entire thing and knows how to teach these guys how to handle firearms, how to handle themselves in these close quarters, and all the different ways of doing the combat in the entire film. This guy was an absolute expert. And I was so impressed finding out he was involved in the entire film, because like Live in Hell, I'm a Michael Mann fan, like Live in Hell, and finding out the guy that Mann trusts on these types of films, being involved with this, just escalate everything to another level for myself, and just fantastic. So much of what is done with the action here it just breaks through so much. Like, it's such, like I said, a lean film. It's such a straightforward, no nonsense action film that kind of a little bit fell out of favor and whatnot, when he had things building up in the 90s where it's bigger and bigger spectacle, and the budgets getting bigger, and the special effects get huge and stuff like that. The explosions get bigger, and all the different things. Like, it had to get bigger and bigger. Writing film that you can get these kind of stripped down, sort of intimate action films to a certain degree, and just have that kind of rawness to everything like that. It's a really good type of thing. Like, getting this entire film was such a great type of thing in 2009 when I saw it theatrically, then saw the much more extended, proper unrated version on home video. Just like, this thing is so good. And it holds up. 15 plus years later, this film still holds up very, very well. Neeson's fully invested in the entire thing. Morel just right here proved himself completely as a director, and having a really good team of people around him to understand how to do the technical stuff extremely well. It's just really good. It's really goddamn good. I never saw in the sequels, because one, I felt like this is such a great standalone story. You don't need a sequel to this, because I know what the stories are in the sequels and whatnot, and they do get it ridiculous. And I know that they changed directors to Olivier Megaton, and they just ravaged his freaking directing on the critical end of things. Like, he did all the things wrong that Morel did right with the handheld action cinematography. Apparently just 9,000 edits a minute, and just trash. I've heard they're just not good sequels. Some people feel like Liam Neeson was kind of phoning it in. He wasn't very invested in it. Just took big paychecks on the whole thing. But there are definitely some good action films that did kind of come up in this entire line. Like, didn't care for Unknown. I felt like it wasn't very action oriented. I didn't find the story very good. Nonstop was kind of okay. It's got some kind of logic holes to it, but it's kind of a fun B movie to a certain degree. Walk Among the Tombstones. That's the fucking movie, man. I love that movie. Oh my god, that's the one to check out. I did a review on freaking opening weekend. I loved that film so much. I watch it over and over again. It's fucking great. It's one of the best films Neeson did in the entire era. Right up there with this film. And just like, it's such a great piece of work. Anything after that is kind of lost interest. Anything else just felt like it wasn't getting great reviews. Not a lot of promotion for a lot of these different things. It just kind of felt like churning it out over and over again, here and there and everywhere. Some of them might have been a little bit better than others, but none of them were anywhere the caliber of what Taken was. Nothing on that level. Just like, nothing broke that ground. Nothing made that impact. Nothing just had that kind of fervor behind it, that everyone saw this thing like, god damn, this is good. And then even people seeing like a cut down version of it, it still felt good. It still had good qualities to it in the PG-13 cut, but just the unrated one just amplifies it more because, again, the electrocution interrogation scene, like living hell, goddamn, that can not be in the movie. That has to be in the movie. Anything like that, but guys, it's good. It's really damn good. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about the original Taken. If you have seen the sequels, or even the TV series they did, let me know about it, because like I said, I just didn't feel like there was a need for me to go see them, and I saw the reviews, and they weren't good. None of the reviews for the second and third films were any really bit good. So it's like, I don't need to go off of that, because it just felt like sometimes one film is good enough, and it just stands well, and this one still stands extremely well, and I don't feel it's tainted by the other ones, maybe just because I haven't seen them. But go back, if you've seen the other two and thought like, oh, kind of trashy, kind of diminished things, go back to the original one and experience it over again, because goddamn, it's fucking good. So guys, comments below, thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed what I have to see. If you contribute anything to the channel, help it out and support things in that regard monetarily. We've got the Super Things feature, a little $ in the heart whatnot icon on the video, and the Patreon if you want to get early access to everything we put up on the channel with the reviews, retro video series, commentaries. Hit up on that. But also, guys, just watching, interacting on the channel, sharing links around, subscribing if you have not, all helps make the channel healthy and get people more involved here and expand things out and stuff like that. So guys, thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.